Hi, my name's Richard Layte. I'm the Professor of Sociology at Trinity College in Dublin, head of the Department of Sociology. And what I want to do here is I want to, first of all, outline to you what the study of sociology is. And then I want to show you how you can study sociology at Trinity College Dublin. So first of all then, what is sociology? Well, sociology is the study of human beings in social groups. Social groups are a fundamental part of what makes us human, and they influence our behaviour in very profound ways. And sociology is a study of the mechanisms through which group life influences individuals and the way that that leads to patterns of behaviour at the individual level, but also patterns of behaviour at the group level, so that whole societies have particular patterns in them that we try to explain and understand. Okay, so what are social groups, first of all? Well, social groups are those things that we know about, that we spend our life in. So, for example, families. Families are a fundamental part of our societies, and they come in all different shapes and forms. Some are larger than others. Some are made up of all men, all women, children, and adults. But there's a real mix of different kinds of family forms. But families influence individual behaviour in really important ways, not only to do with the socialisation of individuals, but in the way that they organise our work and our engagement with the wider society. There's lots of other kinds of forms of groups as well. What about our communities, our neighbourhoods? What about the sports teams that we spend a lot of our time participating in, and the kind of organisations of choice, if you like, that we're members of? Some of those might even be, for example, in the labour market, those organisations that we spend our time working in. All of these are forms of social groups, and social groups really influence the kinds of behaviours that individuals will display and the interaction between individuals. So, what kind of influence do groups have on individuals? Well, groups provide a form of identification for individuals. All of us, when asked about who we are, when asked about details about ourselves, we often come up with group identifications. We say that we are Irish, or we say that we are academic. We put forward group identifications as part of our inner selves, as part of what makes us up, part of the characteristics that we have. And when we come to think of ourselves and those characteristics, we can often have our self-esteem based upon the very groups that we're members of. Maybe we're proud that we're a member of a certain sports team, or even a supporter of a certain sports team who are very successful. Our different groups will have different kinds of social norms about the kind of behaviours that we display, the kind of things that we think are right, the kind of foods that we eat, the kind of clothes that we wear. These are all normative behaviours that identify our social groups. Human beings have these very subtle forms of identification with their social groups through their social norms. Lastly, we have particular beliefs that come with our social groups, that mark us out as being part of our social group. And of course, they then influence the kinds of behaviours that we display. All of these are what sociologists would call social structures that influence the kinds of behaviours that we will display. But it's not just about those kind of mental constructs that we have about our world. It's also about the kind of ties that we have, our patterns of affiliation that we have within our societies. So there are patterns of kinship and friendship in social networks, and sociologists study the patterns that we see that people are a part of, the kinds of links to family, to friends, and how that then influences their lives. Lastly, sociologists spend a lot of time looking at patterns of stratification and hierarchy in social groups, the inequality within social groups and organisations. Some of those organisations are going to be larger than others, and we're particularly interested, for example, in the way that inequalities in populations lead to differential levels of life chances, to power and resources within, say, nation states and countries. All of these are dimensions of human behaviour in groups that sociologists will study. Now, I want to give you just one example of a kind of a problem that you can look at through a sociological lens as opposed to, say, an economic lens, okay? So Here's the basic question. Why are people unemployed? Well, we might think that that's because of the state of the economy. So, as we've known in the Irish context, if there is a recession, if there's a fiscal crisis and the companies are laying off employees, then there's likely to be more unemployment. And if there's more unemployment, then I might be more likely to become unemployed. So, if you like, it's about the economic context that the individual finds themselves in. It might also be to do with, of course, their personal characteristics. They might have a specific level of education, skills, and past employment experiences that gives them certain abilities, certain productivity, we could say. And those are all going to influence whether they have a job or not. So people that have more skills that are in short supply will be more likely, of course, to be employed because their skills are going to be in demand. It might be, of course, that there are also individual level motivation characteristics. Okay, so all of these things are factors that might influence whether someone's unemployed or not. And sociologists will be interested in these factors, but we're going to be particularly interested in the way that the person's probability of unemployment is related to the type of social network that they're a member of. The social network, if you remember I was just referring to, is that set of affiliations, ties that you might have to friends, to family, but also to the wider society via that sort of network of people that you might know, some of them only in passing. Sociological research shows that social network is absolutely crucial for whether you will become unemployed, and particularly if you're unemployed, whether you're going to get a job quickly or more slowly. Now, we can look at this here in terms of a representation of a social network, okay? So some of these people are linked to others. Not everybody's linked together, okay? But what we see is that most people there in the main grouping are linked through what's known as a strong link. So these are going to be good friends and family. And there's a small group there off to the side who have a weak link from the main group into this smaller group. A weak link is somebody who we know, but they're not necessarily someone close to us. We're not going to spend a lot of time with them. We're not going to have an awful lot of sort of trust relationships between us and them. But nonetheless, they can be really useful for us in terms of the probability that we might get a job afterwards. And it's because of the logic of weak ties. In unemployment, if you're looking for a job and you go to your strong ties, the chances are that your strong ties are going to be like you. Those friends and family are going to be very similar to you in lots of key characteristics in terms of, say, income or the kind of jobs that they have or their level of education. People tend to come together who have very similar characteristics. It's called homophily within sociology. And the people who are like you, though, are going to be at similar risk of unemployment. Therefore, you need to bridge away from your own social network to a wider social network that may be better at having access to jobs. And that's what this schematic shows you. What you find is that those people who have weak links out to other social groups are more likely to leave unemployment. This means that we can represent it here about the way that tie strength is linked to your probability of getting a job. What this chart shows you is a very simple thing. It's just that as tie strength increases, your odds of actually getting a job, that's the probability, if you like, that you're going to get a job, shrinks. So people who have more weak links in their social networks are more likely to be able to leave unemployment if they become unemployed. So we find that, for example, people whose fathers work in jobs that give them a lot of connections into the world. Say you've got a father who is a salesman, or they are somebody working in a shop, but they meet a lot of people. The kind of weak links that provides will give you a bridge to other social networks that allow you to become have a larger probability of becoming employed. It's a fundamental part of the social structures that you're a member of that set your probability of becoming unemployed in the first place and then getting a job if you become unemployed. It's those kind of social networks that sociologists study. Those kind of social networks and those strong and weak ties are also going to be really important for social change, for the way that our societies will change over time. For example, if you've got a social network and that social network, like I'm representing on screen here, is made up of all strong links, then that's going to be a really cohesive group. Okay, and a social network made up of those kind of social, very cohesive groups, so cohesive links, might be very good at making things happen. They're going to be able to coordinate their behaviour, they're going to have a lot of trust in each other, they're going to cooperate a great deal. But if you want to spread your social movement, if you want to bring in others and grow so it might become a nationally important social movement, maybe even changing the society you're a member of, you're going to need to recruit others. It's not enough to just recruit people who are just like you. You're going to need to make bridges to other social networks, and that's where your weak links come in as very important for developing those kind of links to other parts of society, bridging, as a sociologist would call it, to other kinds of people within your society. Now, these, again, another instance of the way that the social structures you're a part of and the social groups you're a member of will influence your behaviour and your individual outcomes, but also, crucially, the kinds of outcomes for the society overall. Only weak links can make your social movement grow larger and maybe become nationally significant. Okay, I want to talk a little bit now about the 4 ways that you can study sociology at Trinity College in Dublin. There are 4 main programmes that we have at Trinity College Dublin that you can study sociology as part of. We've got philosophy, political science, economics and sociology, that's PPES as it's known. Business, economic and social studies, or BES as it's known. Joint honours sociology, that's where you study sociology alongside another discipline. And lastly, sociology and social policy, where sociology comes together with the School of Social Work and Social Policy to be able to show sociologists how the sociological knowledge can be applied in the real world for intervention, to make change occur. These 4 different programs each have components of sociology in them, but notice you can combine different disciplines within it. You can combine sociology with philosophy, political science and economics in PPES, and you can combine sociology with business in BES. So this is really important. You have to choose the right program to be able to make the combinations that you want to do for your own undergraduate degree. Now, crucially then, it shows you that in sociology in Trinity College Dublin, we also believe that sociology is best studied as part of a programme of research that involves other disciplines as well. You can study sociology just by itself, but it's very rare. Most people are going to study sociology as part of a combination of other disciplines as well. Here's an outline of the sociological degree course at Trinity College in Dublin. In the first year, you have a sort of foundational year. You get an introduction to sociology, a module that I teach, introduction to economic policy, introduction to politics in Irish society, plus other modules depending on your degree programme. Okay? We call that first year junior fresher. Senior fresher is your second year, and here you're going to do some obligatory modules if you are following a sociological degree. So you will do social theory, and we'll also have a methodological module for you called Introduction to Social Research. That's where you do your first introduction to the methodologies of the social sciences. That is how you gather and analyse data and evidence. There are also going to be other modules that you can take here, like gender, family and society, power, state and social movements, all really important modules in terms of teaching you about core components of sociological discipline. In your third year, what we call junior sophister, you then get to choose, if you're doing a core sociological degree, then you'll have to actually have an obligatory module of researching society, which is our more advanced methods module. And then there will be other modules that you can choose from depending on your interests. So for example, there's globalization and development, race, ethnicity and identity, comparative sociology of Europe, social stratification and inequalities. All core modules in terms of the understandings that they bring of different processes within our societies. Lastly, In fourth year, or senior sophister, as it's known, you get the option of taking different modules: gender, markets and institutions, social networks and digital lives, one that I teach, conflict studies, migration, mobilities and integration, and crucially, you can also do what's known as a capstone project through the sociology, social policy dissertation. Okay, so here you're writing an extended piece of work based upon evidence that you have gathered and you have analysed. It's a really important part of the learning process, and through this dissertation process, you will be able to create your own piece of work. We often have fantastic dissertations within Trinity College Dublin, particularly in sociology, and I think it's a really big contribution to the learning experience. One thing that I'd like to mention whilst introducing you to sociology at Trinity College Dublin is studying and working abroad. Okay, we have the Erasmus programme, which is a European-wide degree arrangement between different universities where you can spend a half year or a full year studying in one of our partner institutions as part of your university degree. It usually happens in the third year, in junior sophister, and it's really important as an experience. Not everybody does it, but we have an increasing number of young people leaving Trinity for one term or two terms to experience life in another country and abroad. It's going to contribute to your CV. It's going to show to future employers the range of experiences you've had. It's going to increase your independence. It's going to equip you with skills you wouldn't have got if you stayed at home. You'll also make new friends. You're going to go to another country, you're going to live independently, and you're often going to be operating in another language, depending on the country that you go to. You don't have to go to a degree course in another university where it's taught outside of English. But it is possible depending on the institution that you choose. It'll deepen your subject knowledge. So I think this is an important part of the degree experience if you want to go abroad, and it can really contribute to better outcomes for you. Here are the Erasmus partners that we have in Europe. So Charles University in Prague, the University of Copenhagen in Denmark, University of Helsinki in Finland, Istanbul Bilgi University in Turkey, University of Tübingen in Germany, Umea University in northern Sweden, University of Malta, and University Lille in France. All exceptional institutions in their own right that provide the kind of sociological training that we believe is worth taking up and that parallels many of the types of modules that we would operate in Dublin. We also have other international exchange partners. For example, there's the Australian National University, obviously in Australia, University of Melbourne in Australia, McGill in Canada, Boston College in Boston in the eastern seaboard of the US, and the University of California. All of these are our exchange partners too. They're of course outside the Erasmus system, but nonetheless are really important experiences if you would like to travel outside of Europe. What kind of careers can you do as part of after taking sociology at Trinity College Dublin? Well, it's a general training in thinking logically and also understanding human beings in social groups, and therefore it contributes a great deal of understanding that you might use for the kind of management consultancy or management generally that you might do in a whole host of different careers. But sociology will also equip you with the ability to both understand and collect evidence and be able to analyse evidence so as to make arguments. And again, those kinds of skills are going to be absolutely important in a whole range of different careers. You can apply these skills in areas like marketing and advertising. Academic research and teaching, obviously, are going to be ones where these kind of skills are going to be crucial. But we also have past alumni in areas like broadcast media and journalism, policy development and the public service, a wide range of different kinds of careers. And we will equip you with both the specific and general skills that you require to be able to operate in these environments. Here's some of our alumni. Actors like Pauline McLynn, economic commentators like David McWilliams, Lenny Abrahamson, the film director, the man who recently did Normal People, filmed at Trinity, Sharon Boylan, the reporter and presenter on RTE, Dominic West, the actor, Ray Darcy, the presenter, all past alumni of sociology at Trinity College Dublin and people that will be in the public eye. Really interesting range of different careers there you can see will lead you from our study here at Trinity into your career. Thank you very much for listening today. I hope that that's been a good introduction to what sociology is, and also to the kinds of structures and ways that you can study at Trinity College Dublin and the careers that it then leads you to. Thank you very much and goodbye.